Hi everyone, this is Chris Mutuma from Ikich Programming. In this video, we are going to look at JavaScript arrays. Without further ado, let's begin. So I have my text editor, that is Visual Studio Code, open, and I'm running a live server. That's how you can see my browser here. And then I have my two files, that is index.html as usual. I've linked the script and that which is main.js. All right, and then now I've opened my console because we are going to be working on the console until the moment now we are going to look at the document object model, when now we are going to look at different ways of using JavaScript with HTML. So guys, in today's video, we are going to look at JavaScript arrays. What is a JavaScript array? Or basically, what is an array? So an array is a special variable which can hold more than one value at a time. And this can hold many values under a single name, or rather under a single variable. And you can access the values by referring to these values using an index number. So JavaScript arrays are index based, meaning that for you to be able to access any element in an array, you have to use an index of that element in a list of an array. So arrays are used to store multiple values in a single variable, as we've said. Now let's look at how to create a JavaScript array. Creating JavaScript array. So we are going to look at the most common way, which is by use of what we call array retro. So we've seen in our previous videos whereby we've been, for example, when we are looking at objects, we talked of creating JavaScript objects using object retro. So the same here, we are going to look at creating JavaScript array using array retro. But that doesn't mean that we are not going to look at any other method. We are going again to look at creating JavaScript array by use of the new keyword. So how do we create a JavaScript array using that is an array retro? So remember when we defined what an array is when I was explaining, I said that arrays are used to store multiple values in a single variable. So that means we are going to create a variable by use of const keyword. And in this case, I'm going to use the char variable. And then we are going to use the assignment operator, the equal sign. Now, to create an array in JavaScript, we use square brackets. Right? We use square brackets. When you are using array retro, we use square brackets. Then inside of these square brackets, this is where now we write the array elements. So now here we are creating an array char. Now I'm going to write a number of chars here, that is model chars, so I have to put them inside a quotation mark. Also, I want you to note that you can pass any data type in an array. It doesn't matter if it's a number, if it's a boolean, if it is a string. So it is not specific to strings only. You can pass any data type in an array. So I'm going to get these elements. So the first one is a Mercedes. Then you separate them with a comma. Then again, an BMW. Okay. Then Ford. And then maybe here finally we can look at Jaguar. All right. That's not the spelling. All right. So this is how we create a JavaScript array retro. All right. So it is that straightforward. You create a variable and the array elements must go inside square brackets. So I hope that is clear on creating a JavaScript array through use of an array retro. Now, you can create an array not only on one line. So meaning you can have an array whereby each element is on its own line. So we talk of that is line breaks. Okay, so line breaks and spaces are not important on this. So you can declare the same variable for illustration purposes, and then you can use that and then do a line break, and then inside here now you can add your array elements and separate them using the comma. All right, so here we could have created this array again this way. This is another way of doing it. So that depends again how you want. Again, this one makes it even more readable when you're even understanding the structure of your array. So that is another way of doing it, by using, or rather by putting each element on its own line and separating them with a comma. Now there's a third way, whereby you can create an empty array, and then later on you assign, or rather you provide the elements. So how do we do that? So we can come here and do again the same thing. This is for illustration purposes. Car. All right, then that's an empty array. But now, when we are going to be providing these elements of this array, we are going to use the index number. So when I was defining what an array is, I mentioned that these values can be accessed by using index numbers, or rather by referring to their index number. So we are going to use the variable name, which is car, because now that is the array name. Then we are going to use the square brackets and pass our index. So indexes in JavaScript arrays start from 0 and move on from 0, 1, 2, 3, depending on the number of arrays elements that you have. Then we are going to use the equal sign, and we are going to assign, or rather provide these values. And now since this is a statement by itself, you have to terminate it using semicolon. Let's have the others. So this is the idea, guys. You do that, and then you add, you can use double quotes or single quotes, B and W, then terminate that, car, and then 2, and then Ford, terminate that, car again, and then 3. Here we assign Jaguar. All right. So this is another way of creating JavaScript arrays by use of an array retro. All right. So you can use any method here for this way. So if this is the one that you prefer, because now it is more clear for even some other developers, they can understand your array better. And if you have so much, so many elements that you need to represent, or rather you need to have on your array, which bringing them on the same line is a bit neat. Okay, so that's how we can, let me just name these cars, and then this one cars. So the reason I'm doing that, guys, is so that we don't get an error that variable car is already defined. because we defined it here. But basically, this is how you create JavaScript arrays by use of array retro. Now, we can also create an array by use of new keyword. So again, the same, we are going to create a variable, and then we are going to call it new car. I'm going to use camel case there. And then now, here we are going now to use the new keyword and the word array, with the first letter being uppercase. So new array. And this array now is an array constructor we are creating here. If you remember in our video where we talked about JavaScript object constructors, we saw how we can create objects of the same type by calling the object constructor function with a new keyword, right? So the word array here is an array constructor. Then when you use the new keyword, we do not use the square brackets, but rather we use the normal brackets. Then here we pass cars, all right? Let's do that. Then the other one was Ford, and then the last one was Jaguar. All right. So you create an array with a new keyword. So guys, I hope that is clear. Those two different ways that we can use to create arrays. But I'm going to reiterate that it is easy to use the array retro. So this first method here is the more popular way to use it, and it is easier because of simplicity. It is simple, it is easier to read, and execution speed is high when you're using array retros. And again, it is easier even to understand other than by using the new keyword. All right, so let's look at how we can access. So this is a topic, a subtopic, accessing array elements. So remember when we defined an array in the beginning of this video, I talked about index numbers. The same way we've used index numbers here to pass these elements and create this array. Now we are going to use the same way, these index numbers, to access, okay, to access an array element. So we are going to access this Mercedes element on our array car. So how are we going to do that? So I'm going to create a variable, let, and then I'm going to call it r car, and inside this variable, rather, I'll assign this variable car. Then I'll use my my square brackets, and since Mercedes, and we said that indexes start from 0. They start from 0 in JavaScript. So Mercedes is at index 0. So here we are going to pass 0, and we are going to terminate that. So I'm going to console log that. Let's see what we get on our console. And then we're going to get the array car, which is the variable that we created to store those results. So you can see here I'm getting Mercedes. Pull this up a little bit because of this part here that is blocking. So now guys, you can see we have Mercedes. So what if we wanted to access maybe the second value, which is another element, which is BMW? We are going to use index 1. And when you save here, you can see as well it changes. So this is how we access, an array element by referring to the index number. So now, how do we change an array element? Right. So that's the next thing. If you can, if you can access something again, you can be able to change. All right, changing array element. Now, changing an array element now, we still use the same, or rather, okay, I could have just said, yes, we are changing now. We are going to change this array, or rather this element Mercedes, by saying car, then we pass in the index of what we want to change, and then we assign a value. So now we are changing our index 0 from Mercedes, and let's give it another car, Toyota. Now, if we come now and console log our car array, what do we get? So you can see ideally here we have a total number of 4 elements in our array. So what we are getting here is called array definition. So when we expand, you can see that index 0 has been changed from Mercedes, which let me just change this here. Now if I change this, we are going to get now Toyota, since we've already changed it. Now here we are going to get the correct one, since it has not reached to that point. So here we are getting Mercedes, right, which is this index 0. And now here on our array definition, and you can see it is an array which is 0 based, and our index 0 has been updated from this Mercedes we got here when we console logged cars index 0 to Toyota. All right, so let's do that here again. Let's console log, and then here we do car, and then pass in 0. Let's see what we get. So you can see here now we are getting Toyota. All right, because now rightfully Toyota is at index 0. So now if you want to access the full array, you just pass the car, or rather the name of the array, and it is going to give you what we are calling an array definition that contains everything there. And you can see again it is showing you this is an array. All right, and it is a prototype. So there's a video that we did on JavaScript constructors and prototypes that talked about each and every object, functions, and all that inherit methods and from prototypes. So you be sure to check out that video. So guys, that is accessing, that is changing and accessing an array. Now we've been able to change an array element through this part here. Now I want us to access the full array, which again we have done also. I don't think we need to do that again. Now the next thing we are going to look at is the array length property. So array length property, array length property. All right, so what is this array length property? So the length property, normally how it works, it gives you a length. When you were looking at data types, we looked at the length of a string. So for example, if you wanted to find the length of this Mercedes, it will count each and every letter of this word Mercedes, and it will give us the length. So we want to get the length of an array. Okay, and this time now we are going to get the length of array new car. Okay, so how do we go about that? So here definitely you can say let j equals, so now we want to pass this array length as a variable inside the variable j. So now we are storing it uh, at j, okay, j being our storage. All right, so we are going to check the length of new car, array new car, this new car here. So we are going to say the array name is new car, then we pass the property dot length. Should be spelled correctly. All right, and remember this is a property. This is not a function that now requires you to use square, or rather to use brackets. This is a property. Then now we can, as well as console log this and see what results we get. We are going to console log j, which is a variable that we are storing our new array here. So guys, you can see that we have 4. Remember when we did, so these are 0, 1, 2, 3. So we have 4. So the same here on this other array, which is array car, which had a length. You can see the length part here shows 4. Now if you go further and get that length, you get again 4. So if we added something else here, all right, let's say Mitsubishi, all right, and we saved that, you can see this changes to 5 because we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So which means we have 5 elements. All right. So that's how we can get the length of our array. So now let's get to a more interesting part here, accessing the first array element. So how do we access the first array element? So this is basically easy to access the first array element. I'll just use the console log here, and then in here we are going now to look at cars, and then getting to access the first element is through use of index 0. So basically that's how you access. Where am I going wrong here? It's giving us undefined. All right, let's see what we get and move on. Yes, we are getting Toyota. So we access the first element through the index 0. Now what if we wanted to access the last element? Okay. Let's say we have so many elements. Now we want to access the last array element. How do we go about that? So let's see how we be able to access our last array element. So here we are going to create a variable, I call it v, and then we are going to pass the array that we want. So we want new car. All right, so new car is our, then we use the square brackets. Remember, we want now to access the last element. Okay, then we are going to use again the array, the new, which is our array, the new car, then dot the length here, then space, then negative 1. Right, so which again we have to create some space there so as to not to get a syntax error. So here we are going to console log We are going to console log v. Let's see what we get. So we are getting Mitsubishi. So if you come to our new car array here, you can see Mitsubishi is the last array element. All right. So when maybe now you could have said, what if we did -1? We did 1. So already you can see we are getting a syntax error here. Okay, so it should be that. And when you save, you get Mitsubishi. So this is basically the syntax, and this is the way that you access the last array element. So we are going to look at uh, looping. Let's loop through our arrays. This array element we have here. So looping. Yes, guys, don't worry. I'm just looking at my second monitor here so as to get the correct topics that to cover. So looping array elements. So we are going to use the for loop here, and on this for loop, we are going first of all to create a counter. Okay, let me just yes, we are going to create a counter that we want to loop through this array new car. So we are going to create counter here, or rather we are going to initialize counter and set it to array. Sorry, we are going to set it to array to our new car dot length. All right, and what basically that says is we are setting this counter to the length of the array. So the first one is 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, then we go now and do our for. So you can let Visual Studio Code give you the basic structure of a for loop. And that's how a for loop looks like. So here we are going to let, and now here we are creating a variable I. We are setting it to 0. Then we are going to do now the counter, which we did here. Okay, this counter here, of which now we could have used this new car dot length here if we did not create this counter. But now, since we created this variable, is what we should place this part here. So that's another way you could have done it. Then here on this part where now we are talking about the array, we are going to change that to our array, which is new car. All right. And then now we can console log. We can console log. In fact, we don't need this part here because we need to console log it out. So we are going to have it inside this, which is our new car, then pass the I. All right. And then we can save that, and you can see what basically this for loop is doing is it is looping through this new car array. So it will start from index 0, right, and it will find Mercedes, or rather it will find Toyota since we changed to Toyota. Then it will move to the next one. All right, so yes, now it is going through this. All right, it is going through the new car array. The new car array, we did not change the new car array, so it starts here. This is where it is starting: Mercedes, BMW, Ford, Jaguar, and Mitsubishi. All right, so looping means it is going to output each and every element that it defines. As long as the new car dot length, the counter, is less than I, then we increment by setting
I plus plus, which means I plus 1. So guys, I'm going to do a video on loops now, whereby I'm going to expound further on this topic of looping. So now I'm going to touch on a more popular loop that is used with arrays, which is known as array dot for each for each. So this is mostly used. It's a function, and it's mostly used, and you'll find it mostly being used to loop through arrays by creating a function. So we are going to use now. I'm going first and foremost. Let me comment this out. Now that we have a console, and we save. Somewhere I'm seeing, yeah. Okay, this is why there is coming. So yes, we have a more clear console to work with. Now here we are going. You see now the syntax is array, then dot. So we are going to use our new car again here. So this is our array, new car dot for each. And now inside this for each function, we are passing my let's call it my array. All right, so my array is a parameter that we are passing inside the for each function. Okay, so then from there we're going to create now the we are going now to create the function itself, the normal way the function is created, function, then array. All right, so then inside this we pass a parameter that is I, and then we console log that I. Okay, and let's see. So as you can see, let me again, there's somewhere here we did this, then okay, so it is going to loop through the new car for each element that we have. So it is still does the same as the for loop. Okay, so guys, that is some of the loops that we have with JavaScript arrays. So now let's look at the last topic here, adding the easiest way now to adding array elements. Yes, I know we have added one array element here when we did this part here. That was changing rather. So now we want to add a new array element. How can we add adding new? Let me just rephrase that to new array elements. So the easiest way to add a new element to an array is using the push method. All right, so here I'm going to create a new array. I'm going to call it fruits, and then I'm going to pass in my fruits, excuse me, banana, and then mango, and then we can do orange rather, and then oranges, and then here again we are going to look let's say melon. Okay, so we have 4 fruits here. Now we want now to use now using push method. We are going to add a pineapple to our fruits
array through the use of push method. So here we are going to say fruits dot push. Remember, this is a method, and then now we are going to pass in what we want now to push into our array fruits, and that's pineapple. All right. And then here, if we console log now the entire array, that is fruits. Let's see what we get. So guys, you can see here. Let me just let me comment that out. So you can see we have this array definition where you can see we have our pineapple, which has been pushed as the last element of this array. Okay, so we can also add arrays. Elements can also be added to an array using the length property. So we can use the length property again to add an element to an array. Let's using length. That's how length is written. Length property. So how do we use length property to add elements to an array? So you're going to use the array name, then use the square brackets. Then now here we are going now to use now the same array name, which is fruits dot length. All right. Then here now we do now assign the value that now we want to add. So we can do apple. All right. And we can refresh that. Then we can console log our fruits array here. And then when we save that, you can see the first array definition has 5 array elements, and then the second one has 6 after including the apple. Okay, so now how would you know that, or rather, how would you recognize an array? How to recognize an array. So guys, I hope these two methods are clear. They are much straightforward. So we are going to see them in action more when we move to JavaScript document object model, the DOM, where now we'll interact now with HTML elements. All right. So how to recognize an array? So ES5 syntax, or rather in ES5 version, they brought or rather introduced what is called is array method. So here we are going to use array dot is array method. So this is what we check. This is what we are going to use to check if our fruits array is indeed an array. So we are going to create a new variable here. Let's call it is, and assign it now the array name, which is fruits. That's what we start with. Dot is array, right? Okay. Sorry, we are going to use the name array here. So, the constructor array dot is array, and then now inside this method we pass fruits, and now we can console log this one and see if indeed fruits is an array. All right, that is So you see, it gives us a true answer. Okay, so it is a boolean, it is true or false. So we can again try that with what we created here. That was array cars. So here we can do, let's C, or rather let's CA equals to the constructor here, then dot is array, and then in here we pass cars, and then we console log CA. And when we save, again it is true. Okay, let me just create something here real quick. Const person equals to this person equals to that. So let me create another function here that con equals to array dot is array, then we pass in person, and then we can console log. So we are getting false, because if we do type of person, we're going to get an object. If we do type of fruits, we are getting still an object. But now when we are looking, yes, arrays are objects, but now when we are looking, if this const person is an array, it gives us an object. Yeah, so this is how we create an object retro, right? So that's how you check if that array is indeed an array. So we can also again use instance of operator. Instance of operator. So guys, on this one, let's create another variable here, and then we pass the fruits. All right, instance of array. So remember, we are using this array. It's not a key. I cannot say it's a keyword. It's a constructor, right? Then so it's a reserved word. Console.log g, and this should give us true. Okay, so now you can use either this instance of operator or array dot is array method. So guys, that's what I had prepared for you on this video, and it's my humble hope that you've understood what I have presented on this video. Again, also I want to thank you for supporting me through this channel. If it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be putting out this content and learning together. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.